Our next speaker is John Wrightington. John is a single father, parent to 2 labs, so you might say that he is part of a family of 3. He is also a 4th-generation Unitarian, a rare designation, and he is a 5-time bone marrow donor. The title of his talk is Inspiration. Please welcome John Wrightington.
Thank you. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been practicing my speech, and I've been sitting out by the pool with 2 Labrador retrievers. And the one thing that I got very used to was picking up a tennis ball and throwing it into the pool and then continuing with my speech. So I've asked 5 or 6 of you to throw tennis balls at, no, I didn't. But they didn't help me much, so I'm pretending you're all 88 of you are Labrador retrievers. When I was young, very, very long ago, in Sunday school, we were taught a lesson on how to express compassion. And that was through 3 things: through your time, your talent, and your treasure. Well, for a 6 or 7-year-old, treasure didn't amount to much, but I got the point. This really came to roost, and I just recently went to a memorial service for my mother's best friend, my late mother's best friend, who lived up in Boston, and she was 92 years old. And during her eulogy, it was all centered around those 3 ways of expressing your compassion. So as I listened to it, it really came to light that this was a wonderful woman. First, 5 years before she passed away, she started raising money for charities for the medical community in Boston. 15 years after she retired from Boston General, she volunteered overseas with Doctors Without Borders and also with an organization called Operation Smile that corrected cleft lips for children in Africa and the Middle East and Europe and everywhere. And then when she passed away, she gave most of her money to charity. So when I look at someone like that, they really encompassed as much as they possibly could in expressing their compassion. First with time, then with talent, and then with treasure. Lots of treasure. Well, that's great, and I learned a lot from that, but I also learned a lot when I was a child from somebody else who taught me another lesson, and that was do as much as you can. That person, was my mom, Molly Wrightington. This is a picture of us in Stamford, Connecticut in 1968, when I was 10 years old. I only looked 11, but anyway. But Mom, my mother was a divorcee with 3 children, and she struggled. She struggled to make ends meet every day, paycheck to paycheck. She was the mother of 3 boys, and I was the youngest one, so I was lucky enough to inherit all of my brother's clothes. I was not the fashion trendsetter in Stamford, Connecticut, which, if you might know, makes Highland Park look meh. So over time, Mom had to work overtime just to pay the mortgage, just to put food on the table, and also just to keep our 1958 VW Beetlebug running. It was tough. Not only did we have, clothes to wear but also we basically, our fundamental diet most of the time was macaroni and cheese and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But the one thing that I do remember most about my childhood wasn't necessarily anything like that. One thing I remember is how much time she spent with other people helping them. And so what I wanted to do tonight is to give you an example of one aspect of my mom that I thoroughly admire, and she brings me inspiration every day from just thinking about it. Well, it was actually the fall of 1970. Our dog Susie, the Great Dane here, 120-pound Great Dane, started eating tennis balls at night and actually consumed not only the tennis balls, but also the container of the 3 tennis balls. We woke up the next morning and saw what had happened and immediately wanted to take her to the vet. Well, that day, not only was it rainy, sleety, but it was also, we had the misfortune of having a VW Bug that had a defroster that hadn't worked in so many years. So in order for us to get there, luckily the windshield wipers didn't work either, was to put our hands on the window and to let the ice melt so my mom could even just see the road. Well, Mom couldn't do that and drive, so I had my hands over on one side, just trying to, keep it thing. Unfortunately, Susie was in the back breathing heavily, so there was fog all over the place. So I had to take my jacket off and start wiping the windshield. So now you see the context of where this is going. Well, we got close to the vet's office, and my mom noticed that there was an elderly lady that was sitting at a bus stop, and beside her was a laundry basket that was filled with clothes. Well, Mom got a little suspicious, and so she slowed down, but then she realized that we had to get to the vet right away for Susie. So 2 hours later, Susie fixed, all fine, no tennis balls in the tummy. we headed back home. And on the way back home, we stopped and saw that the lady was still at the bus stop. Now, this was on the Boston Post Road, which is US 1 in Stamford, Connecticut. This is a major road, and the buses normally run very frequently during the weekend, so we knew something was going on. Well, Mom, being who she was, slowed down, did a U-turn, and looked over at me and went, "Let's check this out." I rolled my eyes, just flabbergasted, because I knew that Mom was on what we called in our family one of her missions. 5 minutes later, we all piled back in the car, me in the back seat now, with a laundry basket on my lap, with a 120-pound Great Dane sitting next to me, breathing heavily still. Well, we got home, Mom lit a fire, we could afford a fireplace, and she made macaroni and cheese with cut up slices of hot dog, which was my favorite, and we sat by the fire and we got to learn who this person was, and her name was Evelyn. And Evelyn was mentally challenged, and she was also, to some degree, very dysfunctional. She was just distraught, she was disorganized. It was an interesting conversation. And Evelyn was 72 years old. From what we learned, she came from Western Pennsylvania, and somehow she ended up in Stamford, Connecticut. But she didn't know how, and neither do we to this day. Well, Evelyn came to our house in the end of November. She left sometime in April. And during that time, my mom basically had to recreate this woman's life. So she first went to Social Security, got her Social Security checks reinstated. Then she went, found her some housing in a senior citizen center. And then she spent most of her time trying to talk a social worker into working or taking her case. So over those 4 months, Mom spent a lot of time trying to get Evelyn back to normal, if that's possible. So this wasn't just a one-time occurrence. This happened constantly, and it happened pretty much until the day she died. So during this time, not only did we share our house with humans, we also shared it with dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, and sometimes we even had 2 Peking ducks living in our bathtub for when I was like 4 years old. And as a matter of fact, if you look at my Facebook page, you can see me holding the 2 ducks. It's very cute. So not only was our house a homeless shelter sometimes, it was also an animal shelter, and sometimes it was even a food pantry. because my mom had this annoying habit of asking her coworkers, her family, her neighbors, her friends to donate food for her missions. And this happened frequently enough that we actually had a closet in our house that was just filled with food, but we weren't allowed to eat it. And we had tuna fish, we had roast beef hash, which is just the most delicious stuff in the world. And we were like, oh. But anyway, so basically what I'm getting to is my mom was just spent so much time and effort helping other people. We got treated pretty well too, but the dogs got treated a lot better than we did sometimes. And Mom died. She died in the fall of 1971, or winter of 1971 in a car train accident. And at her memorial service, the minister said some really inspiring things for me, and some things that shocked me as well. He said that she was one of the biggest benefactors in our church. She would be sorely missed by so many people in the community. And I looked around and saw these people I didn't know. They knew her, or they didn't know me. Well, so I really took that to heart and listened to what was said and how it was conveyed to me that my mom was a very important person in the community. But I didn't see that, because all I saw was something I saw day to day. So to me it was normal that she did things like this. Not to other people, but and it really gave me a whole new perspective on life. The one thing that I always observed with her is she always felt like she didn't volunteer enough. And I would think that even in her day, people would recognize that she gave 100%. Now, she didn't have a upper level degree, so she wasn't a person that had the skills to go out and do something like, treat students overseas for cleft lip. But Mom did have a few skills of her own. One of those was determination. The other one was coercion. She could talk you into anything. And I was always amazed at how much money she could raise for whatever project or what food donations we were going to get. But what it taught me was, first of all, that she had a talent, and her talents were different than others. And the other thing, getting down to treasure, in our church, we normally gave 10% to the church and charities. In our case, Mom used to put $2 or $3 in the pledge envelope and hand it in, and to her, that was a lot of money. It wasn't 10%, it wasn't 1%. Well, it's getting around anyway. But so basically, in her own right, my mother gave the same level of compassion at a different tier than the lady, my mother's friend, who could give a lot of money, give a lot of time, give a lot of skill. So the important thing here is to recognize that wherever you are, whatever ways and means you have in this world, don't think it's not enough. In fact, as long as you give as much as you can, that one message she gave me, then you can't argue with that. And that's something that my mother did, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm just totally inspired by her still. Thank you.